Hello, we are transmitting to you from our present, which we can only assume is your distant past, the turbulent time that was the early 21st century. Fearing the great cataclysm that will surely befall our civilization, we began this monumental reference of strange and obscure human knowledge. These recordings represent our attempt to compile and preserve wonders and esoterica that would otherwise be lost. Whether you're listening from an advanced civilization or have just reinvented the technology to decrypt our transmissions, this is our legacy to you. This is our time capsule. This is the Omnibus.
You have accessed entry 831.EC0904, certificate number 30063, Neopets. Huh? Kate, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. I feel like we've met before. Is it true? Have we ever met in the wild?
We met briefly once after a very secret event in a secret cemetery many years ago, but also I've yeah.
You were at that secret
I sure was.
event in a sarcophagus. Basically, we were I'm impressed. Well, for those who I'm not going to reveal much about that secret event. It should remain secret. It was secret then, and it should remain secret. But
just how I like it.
It means that the first time you ever heard my voice, I was standing on top of a mausoleum, invisible to you, going ooh,
yes,
or whatever I was doing on the roof of this clammy cemetery cavern. I feel like that's auspicious. That is an auspicious meeting for us too.
Yes. Yeah, it was a great time. So I've been listening to your many great shows ever since.
Well, so what inspired you to want to talk to us today about Neopets? If I'm correct, Neopets, now I'm of a certain age.
Sure.
Right, where I had to start my car with a hand crank. In the morning, and my car was also a biplane. But my understanding of a Neopet is that it is a Sims of Pokemans.
Sure, that's probably a good Gen X sort of metaphor for it.
Thank you. That's the best we can do. We're just working
translating.
We're working with what we have. I don't even know what a Sims is, frankly. I barely know what a Pokemon is.
Well, it is, you get little animals, little fictional animals, and you get to take care of them, and you get to explore with them. And it's the reason that I was interested in bringing it to the Omnibus and entering it into the permanent record of human knowledge is that I think that following the trajectory of Neopets is a good lesson in the trajectory of the early to middle to current internet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a more complicated story than I think most people would recognize, especially people who are closer to my age, who maybe remember it from their childhood and just thought of it as like that fun thing that they used to do, but didn't really know, if you're playing it and you're young, you don't know the context, you don't know what place in history it holds. And if you weren't playing it young, you probably didn't pay attention to it at all, so you have no context whatsoever. But it's a story that contains multitudes, and I think it's worthy of study.
So when you describe this arc of the internet, my sense of Neopets, and I don't know anything about Neopets, but just trying to fit it into that idea, right? It's a thing that was developed by two dinglings in their college dorm, and it was made for their friends. I'm just making this up, but this seems like what all of these things are, right? They made it for their friends or the kids at their college, and then it got big, and then they lost control of the company, and then or they became billionaires or both, and then the thing became like a source of evil in the world, and then like completely divorced from what it originally was, and sold 17 times, and is now owned by Purina Cat Chow, and is and now is like part of a thing where they're scraping it for content, trying to like turn us all into murder bots. Is this the story that? I
mean, I don't even know if I need to do the episode now. No, I'm kidding. There is more nuance to it than that.
Okay.
But I would say you've hit on some key points.
Okay. All right. Because it does seem like the narrative, right? I mean,
there definitely is a standard website narrative of these sort of tech companies that it doesn't stray too far from. But there's twists along the way that I think make it stand out.
Good.
So, it did get its start with two dinglings who made it for their friends. It did.
Good.
Adam Powell was a university student in the UK in 1997.
Oh.
And as a means of procrastinating, he decided, what if I made a little website game for other university students to also procrastinate? So he and his then girlfriend, I believe now wife, Donna Williams, they worked on it together, and in 1999, they launched it. To give you a sense, I know you remember 1999.
I do.
I don't know, how much do you remember about 1999 on the internet?
Well, let's see. 1997 was a year that didn't exist. 1999 on the internet. I sent my first email in 1999, and I was thrilled. I sent it to a guy who lived just down the block. But I went to an internet cafe to do it. And he wrote me back, and I couldn't believe it. I saw this guy every day. But now we were writing letters to one another through these computers. But I remember walking around the internet cafe looking over the shoulders at everyone else, trying to figure out what the hell they were doing. The place was full of people.
Yeah.
And it all looked like news groups. And if someone was like, hey, I want you to see this, and they clicked on an image, it would load like one line of pixels at a time, so that I would stand there and just wait for this image to resolve. And I was like, what are we? And then it would be like a picture of a whatever, I Can Has cheeseburger or whatever. And I was like,
I think I Can Has cheeseburger in 1999.
It might have even been a Neopet. But I don't remember. This was my problem, right? In 1999, I could not understand what people were doing on the internet. It didn't seem to there was no killer app for me at that time, except for email, which I thought was rad.
Yeah, I actually, unrelated to this topic by just fortunate coincidence, I've been reading Cryptonomicon by Neil Stephenson.
Yes.
Which...
He was at Ken's Christmas party just like 2 weeks ago.
Well, if you talk to him, you can tell him I love it.
Okay, I will.
It's the second book of his I've read. I first read Snow Crash, and I loved that. Now I'm reading Cryptonomicon, and it's great. And a lot of it is set in 1999. It's kind of split timelines, but the part that's set in 1999 is heavily involved with networking computers. And the way that he describes the concept of the internet to contemporary readers in 1999 has been a great refresher for me as to what accessing the web was. at that time, which, I was raised a real tech kid. At 5 years old, had the 5-inch floppy disks.
Oh yeah, sure.
Play School made video games, and I could put in the 5-inch floppy disk, and I knew how to boot it up in DOS to operate Play School baseball.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's where I'm coming from.
Okay,
so I was on
native.
the internet. Yeah, I was on the internet in 1999, but I've been on the internet the whole time since then. So, you forget the past sometimes.
So now this interests me a lot because as someone who had a completely analog childhood,
mm-hmm.
and like the kid across the street had a Atari 2600,
mm-hmm.
but I didn't have one. I didn't have my first electronic game even until I was in junior high.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of those little battery-powered football little things. So as someone who had a completely digital childhood, do you see it as a gap, as a generation gap? Because I know you probably hear a lot of Gen X people online talking about themselves because no one ever listened to us. And now we have a moment where we can talk about ourselves before we'll get, just cemented over. But do you see a difference in interacting with people who didn't have digital childhoods that aren't boomers and old people, but like are kind of occupying the same cultural space as you?
Yes, I would say I find myself in that situation fairly frequently. And even for my generation, I would say that I have more of a proclivity for technology. So I'm pretty comfortable with being an instructor, or at least a little bit of a helper, depending on the willingness and capability to learn, which some people know that they don't know, are trying their best, maybe just don't have the skills. Some people don't know and don't want to know, in which case it's like, fine, we will have this interaction for just as long as it takes for you to fix what needs fixing. Right. I don't need to tell you what you're not trying to learn. But I would say something I've noticed is that the younger generation is starting to exhibit some similar skill gaps. Because as a kid who had to learn DOS to play a video game, I know what a file path looks like. I know what folders are. I know where files live. I know that computers have hidden files that you have to hit a keyboard shortcut to reveal if you're trying to get in the guts of things. I have dabbled in Linux. I'm in it. If you are an iPad kid, the file structures are completely opaque by design. The technology companies don't want power users because power users are harder to herd into the patterns of behavior that they're looking for. And a lot of the mobile applications and increasingly desktop operating systems, I think, are really trying to keep users in a walled garden. And so the kids who came up on phones and iPads and things, if they hit download, they don't know where that download goes. It's all dynamically brought up when you then try to attach to an email. It's like, oh, here's some recent files, and you don't have to look for things. So then there's that sort of missing knowledge.
Right. It's a magic box to them.
Right. And you'll see that actually also comes up in the Neopets story. The scrappiness of having to learn the guts of things is increasingly appearing to be more millennial specific and not just younger people writ large.
Right. And I remember watching millennials actually build the structures of the things that they were going to try and use online, and you just build out.
Right. Right.
And feeling like it was a form of massive form of gatekeeping, because and not intentionally, but just people that knew how to build it could have a website that worked. And if you didn't, you had to pay somebody $10,000 to do it.
Absolutely.
And it was a thing. I remember watching Jonathan Colton develop his career where, every musician wanted to put their music up online. And he was just boop, beep, boop, boop, beep, beep, because he was a computer programmer. And for me, it was just a mystery. But now looking at my kid, she doesn't know how. Not only does she not know, I mean, I know more about how computers work, but she can use them better.
Right.
Like she has all the, the moves and she understands, but she couldn't tell you like how the electrons move through tubes like I know.
Yeah. That's part of just coming up in a different ecosystem.
Are you trying to jailbreak that? It sounds like you are some kind of digital revolutionary and like somebody who's working from an underground bunker. We've already established you're in the witness protection program.
Yeah.
Are you trying to destroy our digital overlords?
I wish I were. I just don't have the personal motivation to achieve that kind of greatness. So what I'm trying to do is just make my little walled garden of technology bearable. I'm trying to cut out all the bloatware, all the phone apps that are eating up storage space that I don't care about, all the Copilot in frickin' everything. The fact that they put Copilot in Notepad makes me want to start a revolution. And this is my father, as you may have guessed from me being a tiny child booting up DOS. I come from a family in which that was the situation that could arise. And so my father was in, a pretty early, he did punch cards, literally, like computer punch cards. So right. Something that we bonded over the recent holidays was that Notepad should just be a text editor. There should be no rich text. It spits out characters. It's a .txt file. I don't need it for anything else.
Oh, I wish I'd been at your Christmas dinner.
Well, yeah. I can get started on it any time of year.
Okay.
But,
all right. Good. Well, you're in the right place.
Yeah. Great. I need to, maintain some focus on the topic at hand.
Let's go to 1999, which is where we left off.
And it's where, in many ways, I wish we still were technologically. Because in 1999, to get a picture of the web, the top 3 websites were something like Yahoo, AOL, and MSN, not necessarily in that order. eBay had launched in 1995 as Auction Web and become eBay in 1997.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it was that early.
It's among the earliest of the still extant tech sort of big websites we still have. So eBay by 1998 had 500,000 users.
Wow.
Not clear on how active all of those were, but still, for the early web, true giant.
So I was dating a girl at that time, and she would, which is not the surprising part of the story, she would go to thrift stores and find old Air Jordans and sell them on eBay. And I thought it was remarkable because she had all these Air Jordans. Neither of us wore Air Jordans. She just discovered that they were things she could find for $5 and sell for $50.
Sure.
And she had a whole side gig selling Air Jordans. And I never think about that until you just mentioned it. I was like, oh, eBay. Yeah, sure. Right. All the way back.
It was around.
Oh, cool.
Apparently, one of the first items that were sold, I think it might have been on Auction Web before it changed its name, was a broken laser pointer. It sold for just under $15. And the seller was like, you saw that this was broken, right? And the buyer said, yeah, I collect broken laser pointers. So eBay, I think, was it found its audience pretty much right away.
That guy's building a super weapon. You know he is.
Yeah, right. What are you using all those parts for? So yeah, in 1999, we didn't have Google yet. We didn't have YouTube. It was definitely early days. A lot of people who were signing online were doing it through AOL, which was a very much a walled garden. You open up AOL as a program and then all of your internet happens inside of that program, as opposed to today where your whole computer is connected to the web and you just open a browser as part of that, but other applications connect to the web regularly. And that's really how it worked then too. But for the average home user using AOL, it just seemed like AOL was the part of the computer connected to the internet and the rest of it was just your computer.
Yeah.
So, everything, all of the browser-based stuff was in the AOL box. But, Neopets launched into that universe in 1999, and it was a browser-based game of virtual pets. Now, there had been virtual pets before that. The earliest one I could find was Neko, was introduced in, I believe, 1989. It was a little cat that followed your cursor around.
Oh, I remember the cat, sure.
Yeah, it's open source, so, it was made for a PC and then ported into Mac pretty shortly after that, and I'm pretty sure it's still available because somebody's keeping it up, but it's just a cat that follows your cursor around and sleeps on your desktop. 1995, we had Dogs, which then they launched Cats and then Pets, all of which with Z.
Right.
And that was a computer game where you have a little pet. There was, if you remember, Microsoft Bob.
I don't remember Microsoft Bob.
I'm the only one who remembers Microsoft Bob.
Okay.
Because it was Microsoft's attempt to have a virtual... Honestly, I don't even know what they were aiming for. It was like a house, and then each room you could decorate, and then it would have links to applications. So you could make a writing desk, and then you'd tap on the writing desk, and it would open up your email.
Oh, it was like a dock.
Kind of.
Like a dock of apps. It was like a shortcut.
Yeah, but it was as though you were moving throughout a house.
Right.
And then you had your little assistant, and the default was Rover, who was a dog. But there was also Clippy was in there. There were a whole bunch of different versions of assistants that you could have. And as a kid, I loved redecorating it. There was like a Zen garden, and you could play with the little rake on the gravel and stuff. But as an adult actually trying to do work on a computer, I can see why it failed almost immediately.
Isn't it impressive that some things like the cursor and Windows or files, like they were kind of perfect from the start, and they immediately, everybody adopted it, and we still have it. But then there were other ideas like, oh, you know what people are going to want? Yeah. Like they're going to have the time and the interest to think of their computer as a dollhouse.
Yeah. And it's going to be more efficient or more pleasurable to operate your apps from this house. No.
I had a really good conversation with an ex-Microsoft employee the other day at a party, and I said, has every Microsoft attempt to make a consumer product, or really even a consumer-facing product, why have they all failed? Like it's just like the dustbin of history. Like, where's my Zune now? And he said, every single thing that Microsoft has tried to do that basically is consumer facing has been an ego project of someone at the company. They are terrible at it, but they like any nerds, they want to be cool, and they just keep throwing money at being cool when they should just be nerds. It's what they're good at. They're behind the scenes nerds. And I was like, that just makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah.
As someone who is on Microsoft products all day for work, that makes profound sense to me as well.
Here's the thing about dinner. It happens every day. It's the linchpin. It's the cornerstone. And I've been trying to kind of live on a more regular schedule, and there it is, the anchor, dinner every night. The problem is I'm not the same person every night. Sometimes I feel like cooking. Sometimes I really don't. But ordering food in, now it's $150 for 2 eggs and a biscuit. That's why I love HelloFresh. HelloFresh makes it simple. It takes away the mental load of figuring it out. Pre-portioned ingredients, step-by-step cards. The meal is done in 30 minutes. And it isn't garbage food. It's delicious. It's fresh food. And over 100 recipes, so you don't get bored. So you're not making the same thing every night. And you pick what sounds good. It doesn't just come randomly. You figure it out. And then another great thing about it is the portions have been improved, or let's say enlarged a little bit, so nobody goes hungry. The food is ethical. It's sustainably sourced seafood. It's antibiotic-free chicken. It's seasonal produce. It's steak and seafood at no extra cost. And 3 times the seafood options that they're and 3 times more seafood options than before. Plus, depending on what your weird fad diet is, there's Mediterranean dishes, there's high protein dishes, and, speaking for myself, GLP-1 friendly options. So here's how to get HelloFresh. You know I talk about HelloFresh a lot on this program. It's because I am a user of HelloFresh and an endorser, an enthusiastic endorser of HelloFresh. Go to HelloFresh.com/omnibus10FM to get 10 free meals and a free Zwilling knife, which is $145 value on your 3rd box. And this offer is valid while supplies last. Free meals applied as discount on the first box. New subscribers only, and it varies by plan. Go to HelloFresh.com/omnibus10FM.
Okay, so now you've set us up. Here we are in 1999.
Yes.
It's a weird world.
Yes. Well, we also have had a couple years of digital pets that you can physically carry around with you. We've had the Tamagotchi.
I remember. Didn't they cry when you didn't pet them?
They did. So they were a little keychain pet, and you could feed them, and you had to clean up after they pooped. And if you neglected them for too long, they would cry, and then eventually they would die. Yes, you had to start over. And it was emotionally devastating for children. I have many peers with tales of crying over their dead Tamagotchi.
Oh my God. Could you resurrect it into a zombie Tamagotchi, or did you have to throw it in the garbage?
I think you could start a new one on the same device. It wasn't a one-use device. I had a Gigapet, which was introduced the following year as a cheaper alternative to Tamagotchi. So I don't know per se. My experiences are more specific. Then they had also Tamagotchi, because they were this cute little oval thing.
Yeah.
So they got 2 girl coded. So the next year they introduced Digimon, which is the same thing, but it's square and ugly, because boys can't have cute things.
No,
exactly.
Boys like square things.
Yeah, with uglier colors. But the thing about Digimon is that it became wildly popular. They made an anime and video game out of it that also got introduced in 1999, and I think they're still making Digimon anime today.
Really?
So the idea of these little pets, very popular. But the thing that Adam Powell and Donna Williams came up with that makes Neopets distinct from all these previous digital pets is that they made it a exploration game with a strong community focus. So they invented Neopia, which is a world. So when you log on to Neopets, there's the world of Neopia, and it's a map. There's a globe, and there's little places on the globe that you can visit with your Neopet, and there's activities to do. And there's also site-wide events that happen with storylines that you have to communally progress. So there's also Neo boards, which big 1999 innovation of more message boards. So these text-based message boards where you could communicate and strategize on plots or strategize on the other features of Neopets as a game. At that point, when it was just the two of them and then eventually brought on a small team, it was pretty jokey. It's college students and recent college grads kind of messing around. So, there were a bunch of different pets you could adopt. And one of them was just a picture of the British comedian and TV presenter Bruce Forsyth.
Sure. I'd like him as a pet.
Yeah, he's got a very distinctive face. It was just a headshot of Bruce Forsyth. You could adopt him. There was another little guy called Macy Gray, who a performing artist very big at the time, who I have since had to describe to people not much younger than me while discussing Neopets with them. So that was
she had a very distinctive gravelly voice, and that hit was an incredible hit. She had a great hit.
She's great.
Yeah.
Her whole album was great. I think she's still making great music. So a lot of little in-jokes like that that were popular with college students, but also apparently quite popular with kids. They didn't expect it to be such a success with a younger demographic, but it turned out that high schoolers, middle schoolers, and even younger got really into taking care of these little guys, going on little adventures.
How did the technology work? Because I don't remember at the time there being I don't remember the internet having places where you would log on and it wouldn't take memory or processing power from your desktop computer, but it was a thing that was happening out there somewhere. Yeah. I remember games as being things that happened locally. And I mean, how did it keep your computer from bogging down? Like, what was the level there?
The main architecture of the entire website was Macromedia Flash. So that is something that started in 1996. So it was still relatively new at the time. Macromedia had acquired Future Splash Animator, and they made a free browser plugin that enabled web pages to display animation and video content without having to download stuff to your computer. It all came through the website. And that was a huge deal. Again, this is before YouTube, so there's not really embedded video in the way that we are really used to today. So the Flash plugin eventually surpassed Java, QuickTime, Real Networks, and Windows Media Player in popularity by 2005. So it was, you had to have Flash on your browser, and a lot of the web at that point was running on Flash.
Right.
There was a site called Newgrounds that had been up and running since 1995, but also by 1999 had really become a hub for Flash animation. A lot of people who went on to become professionals in the creative industry cut their teeth doing Flash animation for Newgrounds. There's a lot of early memes were hosted on Newgrounds, stuff that you can trigger a millennial into a memory fugue state immediately, just quoting some of the stuff that was hosted on Newgrounds. I think that's where there was also Albino Black Sheep was the other big Flash website, and I always forget what was hosted on which of them. One of them had animated video for Electric Six's song Gay Bar that was kittens dressed as Vikings playing guitar in the sky.
Sure, really I've seen that. Who had Homestar Runner?
That was its own thing.
Oh.
Yeah, that's its own website, which has come back a little bit. The guys who ran it, that was just some guys having fun, making content. That was Flash. I remember being in the computer lab and my teacher just looking over our shoulders like, why is this funny?
Oh, I loved it. But I know it was, I definitely, even then I was probably 33 years old and I was like, I'm too old for this.
Oh, yeah. And this is the sort of thing I like to remind as millennials slide towards middle age and start going, oh, I don't get what 6-7 is about. I'm like, consummate V's. You can't say shit. That's the nature of teenagers, is to make a phrase hilarious to only them. Right. We did it. We did it on Newgrounds and Homestar Runner. They'll be doing it to the end of time. And the way you get old is starting to say shit like, well, I don't understand why 6-7 is funny.
Yeah, and then right after that, you're like, my mortgage payments are too high.
Yeah. Oh, I slept on my pillow wrong. Shut up.
Well, now, a lot of this, like little pets, like Tamagotchis and stuff, it feels very Japanese coded, but this is coming from England.
Yeah.
Is this, did it have like a kind of neo-Japanese vibe, or was it completely homegrown like Wallace and Gromit in terms of energy, or was everything just 8-bit animation and it all looked like Donkey Kong?
Well, it's all hand-drawn, and there's actually very little by way of animation in the site. It's mostly static images. And it was originally drawn by Donna Williams, I think, did a lot of it, and then they had to hire people because at the start of it, she wasn't naturally an artist.
Oh, wow. Okay. Awesome.
So it's a little, it's just a rough little game for friends in the early days.
And did her not an artist art style establish the visual language of the game so that better artists had to come in and kind of ape her rough style, or did it at some point get all flashy?
They tried to polish it, I think. They tried to polish it up right away. And I think she also got better, but they brought artists in, and it started from pretty early on. It was cute. It's cute and it's polished. It's cartoony, but it's not necessarily anime. I don't know how Japanese inflected it is. It doesn't strike me immediately as immediately derivative of that art style. It's just sort of cute and DIY, but not janky. You look at the map of the world, and I think it's more a product of the technology that they had to work with, where if you're trying to make an image with clickable objects, the objects are just gonna kind of look distinct from the background because of the way that web design worked at the time. Right. You don't have as smooth, a sort of sleek interface as you can accomplish now. This is Web 1.0. This is, still very much HTML frames. Very like GeoCities sort of contemporary, very similar aesthetic. And actually one of the things that you could do on Neopets is make a pet page, which is kind of GeoCities in Neopets. So when you have each of your pets, you can adopt multiple pets. The number kind of varies over time, but it's 5-ish.
Oh.
You can't, it's not like Pokemon in that you're not collecting them all. You're dedicated to your pets because you have to feed them every day and groom them and things. You couldn't take care of 30 of them unless you made that your whole life. But yeah, each pet has a pet page, which you can customize with your own HTML. You can put all those little animations. There is, I was just looking earlier today at the Neopets HTML guide, which recommends that you avoid, I think this is from around when, not long after it launched, maybe a year after it launched, it suggests that you avoid putting too many images on it because it can really slow down the page loading times because of the thing you described of the image loading one line at a time. It's very much like warning these kids who are making their own web pages for the first time that you can't put that much in there if you want people to be able to access your site.
Which is exactly what a kid wants to do, like put a hat on a hat.
Absolutely.
Every time.
Load it up. But all the flashy stuff, the unreadable yellow text on a green background, just an assault on all the senses. So yeah, and I mean, a lot of kids got their start. This is the first time that they ever got to experiment with HTML and things. Kids who started off playing Neopets in the early 2000s went on to become web designers, some of them. It's people really cut their teeth on it from a young age. There were other opportunities to exercise skills that you'd later need in adulthood. There was the Neopian Times, which launched not long after the site, I think in its first year, and it's its own little Neopian paper of record. So users would write articles for the Neopian Times. They accept submissions between 1,000 and I think 50,000 words. But like dissertations, but they're very limited in what you're allowed to talk about. No real world content. It's Neopia. It's in universe. You can't talk about controversies with Neopia. How the site's being run. If you have big opinions about things, it's not going to get published in the Neopian Times. You got to put that on your pet page.
I see. Wow.
And similarly, the boards were also pretty heavily policed. Pretty early on, because of the popularity with kids, they really took content moderation very seriously. They had pretty significant filters. They had, on the boards also, no real world conversations. You're not coming here to ask relationship advice. You're talking about your Neopets. You're talking about the Neopian economy. You're asking how to get quest items. You're asking how to beat the games that were on the page. But you're not talking about the real world economy. You're not talking about your school. You're not talking about your age.
Was this very early in content moderation and filtering? And it feels like
I don't have the history of that up, but it definitely, from my own experience being on various parts of the internet from younger than maybe I should have been, it's a much better policed place than most. Actually, some would say too well policed. You couldn't say gay on the Neo boards until 2020. They had a lot of restrictions. And, it was to preserve that element of not talking about the real world. But
it means 10% of the Neopets were in the closet.
Yeah,
little gay
exactly.
cats that couldn't come out and say, I'm gay.
Right. They couldn't talk about themselves in any capacity. And as this became more and more of a place for community, as much as you're not allowed to talk about the real world, you want to make reference to yourself a little bit. So yeah, sort of a, not double-edged sword. Two ways about it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you're describing a time in history when our ideas of what we're going to make like a cool, functional, utopian society where everybody felt loved and wanted was that we were going to be colorblind and we were going to be, in a way, like maybe totally neutral was the solution rather than everybody has a very distinct identity.
Yeah, and I think for this environment especially, it was treated as like it's just a game, which is a loaded phrase, and it's in the interest of protecting minors' identity, which I think is good because man, this would have been fertile grounds for the wrong kind of people if they didn't have really strict regulations. I think by 2004. They had 500,000 users under the age of 8.
So there was no age restriction on who could be on Neopets.
So there was the age restrictions of you had two types of accounts. You had the under 13 accounts and the over 13 accounts. And if you were under 13, they had a parent permission form, basically, that your parent could fill out and either physically mail or fax to Neopets. I actually just looked up the form, and the current form has the date filled in, the line for the date, comma, 201 blank. Has not been updated since then, and still has the fax number on it, but now you can email it. But yeah, if you're under 13, you had to have parental permission in order to go on the Neo boards at all, and in order to exchange direct messages with anybody. So there was, some age restrictions. I'm sure some 10-year-old figured out how to fake a signature and work a fax, but at least they're trying their best.
And were you under 13 when you started on Neopets?
Yes.
And did your parents send a fax?
I just had to do the math. I don't recall.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But I don't recall being active on the Neo boards. I've been trying to search my own memory of my early Neopets days, because I would say I lapsed by the time I graduated high school. Other things started absorbing my attention at that point.
Sure, drugs. You can say it.
Among
guns,
other things,
drugs.
All the vices. Yeah, that's why I'm in witness protection. But yeah, I don't remember being as active in the community things. There's guilds you can join, which are basically clubs themed on some pursuit in or out.
As long
Neopets.
as it's not gay.
And yeah, exactly. Or not using the word gay. There's just the Friends of Dorothy
Friends
guild.
of Dorothy. Well, so did Neopets go from being a thing that college students enjoyed to being very much a kids thing, or did it stay broadly? What was the audience still broad?
It went to kids pretty much right away. So I'll tell you, in the year 2000, so 1 year after it launches formally, it's immediately gotten so successful that Adam and Donna are like, we need help. And an American businessman named Doug Doring comes in and is like, I have the help for you. We're going to corporatize. We're going to incorporate Neopets Incorporated. We're going to make this a real business. And he's got a really great business structure. I don't know if you are familiar with the org board structure of business.
Is this a Scientology thing?
It's an 80 trillion year old management practice.
Right.
I don't know what would make you think that
came from our outer space friends. I know about this because our mutual friend John Hodgman, for much of the 2010s, was Scientology obsessed. So to the degree that he would invite you over and sit you down and make you watch Scientology videos in his living room on his television set, like, here's what we're doing tonight. And I would say,
boy.
I have so many other things I could be doing right now. Like, New York City is a big place. And he's like, no, you've got to understand. So I know a lot about a lot more than I want to know about org charts, but I never saw it as a way to run a Tamagotchi business. How does it work?
The org board has a number of divisions. If I can cheat a little bit and open up something in my other window.
Can your computer handle it? Is it on the? Are you going through Yahoo?
Yeah, I'm using the same computer I used in 1999. Oh boy, all of these resources are from Scientology. I don't want that. Oh no! Your search history is totally clammed now. Save me, Wikipedia. You're behind 7 proxies, though. You're a smart internet person. Yeah. God, I can't even find it. Well, the org board, it outlines a number of divisions. Here we go. 7 divisions: executive, personnel, sales, finance, training, marketing, and qualifications. it's a little bit, it sounds like from accounts of employees contemporary to that period of Neopets that it was not always the most ideal and worker-friendly organization, because there is a part of one of those divisions that is basically encouraging internal spying, a little bit of motivation through paranoia, I suppose. And Doug Doring and his fellow Scientologists thought, we've got this new, very popular website with children. It would be such a good way to introduce them into the virtues and merits of Scientology. Wow. But luckily, at that point, Adam Powell and Donna Williams, the founders, were still very much involved in the company and put their foot down and said, you cannot put any Scientology content in this website. And that is the reason that I am not a Scientologist today.
Wow. So Doug Doring took over, but did not reveal his Scientology until later. And they still, the two founders had just enough. They still had the launch codes or whatever and could say no. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. They were still involved enough. I mean, it sounds like, they were recent college grads. I don't even know if both of them had graduated at that point. So they're pretty green, and we're just like, this American businessman sounds like he knows what he's talking about. He has a whole system. Let's just go with it. He approached us and we'll do it. But they pretty quickly figured out who they'd gotten in bed with and couldn't deny that the fact that he did have a corporate structure was really helpful for running the site, because they were way in over their heads in terms of the explosion in popularity. But they did have enough clout to say, you can't indoctrinate children on our pet website.
Now explain, I've seen this so many times in my life. What happens is you get a business like this online, there's an explosion of popularity. That means it suddenly costs a lot more to run, but you haven't figured out a way to make money yet. Is that the problem? Because it seems like if you have an explosion of popularity, you would just put that into running it.
They did figure out how to make money pretty early. Doug sounded like a true business guy. I would say that the articles I read in which he's quoted do not paint him as a particularly sentimental person. They trademarked the term immersive advertising, which is at that point the primary source of income, I believe, for the site. And that is something you'll recognize as how every single component of the entire internet works today. It's, a McDonald's-based game. There's all sorts of a big part of Neopets is playing games, little flash games, a lot of Match 3, the sort of stuff that today you kind of associate with free-to-play mobile games that then make you pay secretly hundreds of thousands of dollars to level up. It's the more basic version of those, and they're all skinned like Neopets. So McDonald's makes a game where you're chasing burgers around. At one point in Neopia Central...
That's no game.
It is if you're a little Aisha Neopet chasing him around. There's in Neopia Central, which is one of the regions of Neopia, there's a Cartoon Network building that you can click in and play Cartoon Network branded stuff. That's how a lot of they do banner ads, but most of it is, I think, a lot of their revenue is coming from this immersive advertising.
Didn't that weird parents out? It seems like people would be mad.
Well, there's a really good 2005 article in Wired that, I read, and there was so much of the article is taken up with concern about the possibility of advertising to children. And specifically, this is where I got the figure of 500,000 of the users are under 8, because that's around the age where children can start to discern that they are being advertised to. So, they have in this article quoted parents and child psychologists who are really concerned about the fact that this website has a lot of users who are just like, I don't know, I guess McDonald's loves me. Like, what ulterior motive could they have? And the way that they talk in this article in 2005, I'm like, you are going to hate the next 20 years. Oh, wait until you hear about Fortnite. You're going to be so
my
mad.
Sweet summer children.
You don't even know what's coming. My God. So, yeah. They also, in 2004, they introduced Premium. So that's a paid membership. There's no ads. So they start doing this subscription model. And, 2004, they've been running for 5 years. It's still among they call it the most sticky websites around. By that, they mean people who sign on use it on average about 2 to 3 hours in a session. Right. And in early internet times, I mean, now you're doom scrolling, like every app is designed specifically to keep you on it forever. But at that point, when you're like, what am I looking at? Weather.com for 3 hours? Like,
right.
It's a real, notable figure. It's the highest trafficked website in its Nielsen category, which I think is like family games or something like that. Only 3% of the users are over 30.
Whoa.
So,
wow.
Huge. And this is why in 2005, Viacom buys Neopets.
From the Church of Scientology.
From Doug During, and the founders Adam Powell and Donna Williams decide to divest themselves as well. It sounds like they don't have the same vision for the website as Viacom, so they also take their leave.
Now, are they rich at this point? Did making Neopets make them phenomenally rich, or?
Well, I would say it probably made them at least moderately rich, because Viacom paid $160 million for Neopets, which in today's money is $266.63 million. So respectable.
Yeah, but considering that the people that made Angry Birds sold that for like hundreds and hundreds of millions, like a stupid amount of money.
Well, I think the tech economy wasn't as pie in the sky at that point. This is still not that far off the .com bubble, so there's some level of caution about internet investing at that time. But Viacom had just changed their business model. Because they started out as the CBS Corporation, and then they split. So CBS kind of stayed its own thing, and then Viacom became this kind of media magnate. So they also owned Nickelodeon at the time, which, so they're really seeking a big kid market.
Did they immediately fill Neopets with Nickelodeon branded characters?
They do a Nick partnership. They don't fill it. They already had, I think around the same time, they had Nick Games, which I also remember fondly from my childhood. So a similar, you log on to nick.com and there's a lot of browser games and things. At that point on the internet, maybe you remember this. One of Ronald Reagan's many sins was repealing something about, I meant to look this up. It's something about like child media needing to have actual content in it. It's like why cartoons went from being toy commercials to being like educational.
This was what basically made PBS. Right. It was a law that, and when he repealed it, it was like a tidal wave of just garbage content, like instantly.
Yeah.
I remember it very distinctly. All of a sudden, all kids' content was just something going,
Yes. Well, I don't remember the exact timeline on this, but there was still something to that effect in play in early children-oriented internet. So Barbie.com wasn't an ad for Barbie. It wasn't a web store. It was Barbie-themed games. And Nick.com, it was games and things to ingratiate the brand with children, but not just straight up indoctrinate advertising and sell shit, because they couldn't. So yeah, Nick Games was its own thing, but there was a Nickelodeon partnership. Viacom buys Neopets, and it's not quite, it's about the peak of the usership. They've got 11 million unique IPs logged every month. They've got, I think at the very peak in the Viacom years, they have 25 million users. In 2005, it's 20 million, goes up to 25 within the next couple of years. But with that popularity comes some problems you would expect from a site that involves collecting items and then selling them for Neopoints, which is the Neopian currency. There is hacking. People have been saving their Neopoints. They have Neo bank accounts, and they're full of Neopoints. And people steal them. They hack into their accounts. They steal their rare items. There are so many items on Neopets. I can't even begin. I scratched the surface of the sort of things you can collect in Neopets, and I'm like, I would have to have been playing it continuously over the past 26 years for me to even have what I would consider working knowledge. They have, here's some of the types of apples that they have on Neopets. Disco, Pine,
Sketch apple,
Snow, Imposter, Dark Fairy, and Villainous. The Villainous apple has a little dastardly mustache. Those are just apples. Those are just some of the types of apples. There are all these different items, have different rarities. You get them in different ways. There's quests. You have to do a certain sequence of things. You have to get other items for these characters that demand some weird variety of items for a concoction that they want. It's so in the depth of lore that they are building. They're constantly publishing new stuff. They're releasing new items. They're releasing new outfits. They're releasing new pets, new species of pets, probably yearly at this point. So there's constantly new stuff all the time. Things are rare. People are really looking for it, and people are getting hacked. They're getting scammed. They're introducing bots. So with popularity comes also a criminal element. Luckily, Viacom's a big enough company to invest in some degree of policing for this sort of stuff. Neopets is also trying to diversify a little bit. They release a PlayStation 2 game. They release a PlayStation Portable game in 2005. In 2007, there's a PC game.
And are these games also online? Are they still community games?
They're just little standalone projects. So none of them seem to really hit. I would not say that I have heard of any of them regarded as classic video games. But there's a lot of branding. Their Neopets toys are in Happy Meals.
Right.
There's Neopets merch. There's cross promotion.
Yeah.
They're out there as an IP.
Right.
They're trying to make it a thing. They're trying to make Neopets a thing.
How much of those dastardly apples are like scarcity that's being driven by Viacom's dastardly marketers, and how much of it is stuff that's generated in the app by users and then becomes scarce because of some other thing in the architecture? Like, is that scarcity all manufactured, or is a lot of it derived from user creation?
I'm pretty sure that it's all from the top. But I do think it's not just Viacom. I think it's sort of how the site was conceived of to begin with. there's different shops that you can go to throughout Neopia where when they release new items, they're available in shops. But the shops have a limited amount of stock and they restock periodically at predictable times. So you'll go and it'll say, oh, we're all sold out, but check back at this time and we'll re-up. People start making bots to come on, and as soon as the store is stocked, buy whatever, which is obviously cheating. It's one thing to be there at the computer yourself just hitting refresh. But yeah, people are starting to try and game the system, and because the shops are only restocked periodically, have a limited number of items, even though they are digital and could theoretically be infinite. That's absolutely induced manufactured scarcity. But it is kind of how the site was to begin with.
Yeah, we've covered it several different times, several different ways on the Omnibus, that somewhere in the 80s, this idea of like artificial scarcity as a way of moving just crap product, right? Like, oh, we're only going to make 700 of these little bean bags.
Yeah.
And that was not a thing when I was a kid. If a toy was popular, they just kept making it until it wasn't popular anymore. There wasn't this this idea that we're not making a toy, we're making 1,000 toys, and within that there's going to be this hierarchy of value and this weird, like, oh, the purple one, there's only a dozen of them and they're each worth 10,000 real dollars.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the world that Adam Powell and Donna Williams were already swimming in by the time they made this. So I think that's just sort of, I don't know how novel of an idea they considered it. It's just kind of how to, and it's a form of gamification. It's another sort of like way to induce user interaction, because some of the things, if there's a quest where you have to find these 3 items and 2 of them are easy to find and 1 of them is hard to find, users have their own shop. So if you have too much of stuff, you can put it on sale. You can choose the price that you're selling it for. There's auctions, so a little bit of eBay in there. And then on the Neo boards, if there's a certain quest, people might interact on the Neo boards and say like, hey, I want this item to finish this quest. Can someone like take pity on me basically and help me do this? And some of the quest rewards are more items. There's also avatars, so that when you post on the board, you have a special avatar and you're like, ooh, I got a super rare one that's from a hard to do quest. And now everybody on the Neo boards thinks I'm cool. And you want that. So it's driving user engagement. But because some people are just in it to collect items or get that clout, it also is what is driving some of that bad behavior.
It's such a weird stolen valor thing in a way, like to buy a thing that misrepresents you as having succeeded at some quest. But so how does Viacom keep digital burglars from stealing your special mustachioed apple?
I mean, there's probably a lot of internet security stuff that I don't know about, but there were things like if you get caught using multiple accounts to do things, you'll get banned. There's different parts of the site where there's wheels, like Wheel of Fortune style wheels that will give you different stuff, and they're very specific about if you have multiple accounts to try to game this, we're going to find you and we're going to ban you. So they take it seriously and are trying to track user behavior and find suspicious behavior. And then, I don't know if there's a warning system first, or they just come right down with the ban right away if they decide that you're misbehaving sufficiently.
Because this is happening also at a time when anonymity as a principle of the internet was a very it's a very foundational principle for some of the people on the internet, that you should, they shouldn't be able to track you, or your identity shouldn't be connected to your little cat.
Right. And that is, I think, a big part of how Neopets was designed to function, going back to the fact that the boards were so heavily monitored. And a lot of it was community policing. I don't know if you're familiar with the supermodel and now cookbook author Chrissy Teigen.
Oh, sure. I have all her works.
She was a moderator on the Neopets boards back in the day and has reminisced fondly about her time with the Neopets. So there were people, they had mods who were just volunteers looking out for this sort of behavior. So some of it was coming from Viacom, but a lot of it was coming from the community itself, because there were a lot of people who really, they took it seriously and they saw that sort of behavior as, cheating and misbehaving in their community space. So there was stuff from Viacom, but there was also the community watching itself.
Right.
Which I think is nice.
Yeah, that is nice. I mean, it's nice. And it's part of the thing that we are talking about now as we examine capitalism again for the 400th time.
Yeah.
All these situations where, the native tendency to self-police and be community oriented on behalf of a company that's trying to exploit everybody for money.
Yeah.
And, and you always have to make that decision, like, how much of my time am I putting into this for someone else's profit? How much of my time am I posting on Instagram for me and my friends? And how much am I just, shoveling coal into the engine of Facebook, basically?
Yeah. Well, and I think Neopets started with the structure to incentivize community for community's sake, as well as community for the company's sake. One of the other things in Neopia Central is the wishing tree, and users can just donate stuff to the wishing tree. So if you're, you make a new account and you're like, I don't have any Neo points, I'm new to all this, I don't know how any of this works, and you can go to the wishing tree and be like, oh, cool, somebody donated like 30 Neo points and a pair of raggedy boots, and now I can put raggedy boots on my footless Neopet. Just clothes and items and things, and you can get little stuff from the wishing tree. There's also a little bit of a social safety net in that there are a couple of places you can get free food. There's a giant omelet on the Turanian Plateau that you can go grab a slice, and one slice is 3 servings. So that's, your 3 meals a day for your little pet so that they don't starve. One thing about feeding your Neopets, different from Tamagotchis, they cannot starve. They will simply be dying of hunger forever.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
What a level of hell is this?
It makes me feel super guilty about the ones that I've abandoned to my no longer accessible account from my childhood. I don't have...
Are you saying there's a dozen eternally starving Neopets out there with your...
I would say I probably had like 3. And once I lost access to my earthlink.net account, I lost access to those Neopets.
Oh my God, this is a Neil Stephenson novel. Like somehow this is going to haunt us as a race of people when the robots finally take over. The first thing they're going to do is go around and be like, okay, you have to answer for these pets.
This is why millennials are such a suffering generation, because we all abandoned our Neopets, and every indignity we've suffered as a generation has just been a penance that we're paying. The ghosts of our Neopets are haunting us, our still living, starving Neopets.
Oh my God, it's a curse you brought upon yourselves and you're not even aware of it.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Oh, you brought these things to life, and it's like Black Mirror episode.
Yeah.
You brought them to life, consigned them to purgatory, and now you're just living on borrowed time, my friends.
Yeah. Yeah. That's we're responsible for it all. The sins of our Neopian behavior.
I have my childhood teddy bear on a shelf in my bedroom, and I look at him every night before I go to bed. He's not suffering in a black chasm, an endless void.
Yeah, well, that's the price of being a digital native, I guess.
Okay, all right. So you've created an actual hell.
Sorry.
and populated it with your little friends.
Yeah. Well, and I can tell you, 2007 seems to be the turning point. That's when all of this, our hell started, because users really, they start dropping by 2007.
2007 is when Twitter came online.
Yeah.
A new level of hell. It's
2 years into Facebook. It's, I believe, 2 years into Reddit. It's a couple years into YouTube. And, if you started playing in 1999 and you were in middle school, you're kind of out of high school by 2007. And, I think they drop about 15% of their users. There's a site redesign, doesn't do enough. There's the Nickelodeon promotion, it doesn't do enough. It's still very sticky for people who are continuing to visit. They're still spending that 2 to 3 hours on the site, but there's just not as many people using it. They introduced the NC Mall, which stands for Neocash Mall. So there's Neo Points and there's Neo Cash. This is when they introduced Neocash, which is real money that you pay Neopets to get cosmetic items that are only available in the NC Mall.
Oh boy!
So starting
is
to
this run by Neopets, or is this a third party?
It's run by Neopets. It's still part of the Neopets site, but it's something they introduced to try and stimulate cash flow in the face of falling users. They are still trying to diversify on other platforms. In 2008, they released a game on Nintendo and PC. 2011, they introduced a Facebook game. I don't know if you remember when Facebook games became a really big thing. There was like Farmville and Words with Friends.
God.
Yeah.
Oh, I kept getting asked to join Farmville. I never even knew what the hell it was.
Well, it was a time suck, and Neopets tried to get in on that, and it lasted 4 months, and then they took the game down. The other huge thing that happens in 2011 is that Adobe announces, so in 2005, Adobe bought Macromedia, and so they bought Flash along with it. In 2010, Steve Jobs writes an article about how much Flash sucks and he hates it, and Apple won't be using it anymore. He says there's security concerns and all, I don't know. He probably didn't like that he wasn't in control of it, but
I remember this at the time, and I remember not caring.
Yeah, well, and you didn't need to care for a long time, but in 2011, Adobe says they're going to kill Flash and everyone should switch to HTML5. They don't actually kill Flash for several more years, but this is a warning sign for Neopets because essentially the whole site is built on Adobe Flash. The site does keep chugging along. In 2014, Viacom sells Neopets to Jumpstart Games, which is another US-based company. They did a lot of educational games that all started with Jumpstart. Jumpstart Reading, Jumpstart Math, Jumpstart stuff.
Got it.
So they do educational stuff, and they're like, yeah, we'll buy Neopets and we'll keep it kid-friendly or whatever. But performance of the website kind of starts to dip. Users sort of also notice a dip in quality. The items aren't necessarily coming on the regular schedule. There doesn't seem to be as much of an appreciation for the increasingly deep wealth of site lore that they've been building over time. And then in 2015, one fateful weekend in June, the chat filters disappear for a weekend.
What year was this?
2015.
Oh, boy.
So at that point, I would say the site is more diehards than not, perhaps. It's a lot of long-time users. And when the chat filters get turned off for the weekend, the chat gets raunchy. People take immediate advantage of it. It becomes extremely not safe for work. It was a big deal and kind of a sign of the level of care that was being given to Neopets overall. We're seeing the darkness creeping in around the edges.
Yeah, well, 2015 was a dark time on the internet, wasn't it? I mean, that was the first That was that election year.
Yeah.
Where things started to get terrible on Twitter. I remember feeling like 2015 was the end of the good internet and the beginning of the dark internet.
I would put it a year before.
2014.
2014 was, if you remember, Gamergate.
Sure. It was.
The crusade against ethics.
Women in gaming journalism?
Yeah, let's be real.
I'm still suspicious. Still suspicious.
Yeah, it's ethics in video game journalism. If you're a woman or a minority, you know.
What could possibly be your motivation for writing about games? Right.
So that happens in 2014, and I think that's really a community coalesced around that, a community of a kind, and then brought us the 2015 election rhetoric and 2016.
And now they control the government. Amazing.
And it feels great. But if we could go back to the past where it feels safer. No,
2014. It's amazing to think that was 12 years ago. We've been living in the upside down for 12 years.
Yeah, I think about it a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, and Neopets is trying to stay relevant even in light of their decline. They release a mobile game in 2015 and 2019. In 2017, so 2 years after this chat filter debacle, Jumpstart gets bought by a Chinese company called NetDragon.
What's the worst that can happen?
Kind of the same. It kind of feels like the same happens. Not the chat filter thing, just a general decline in quality. They're down to 100,000 daily active users.
What, from 25 million?
Oh, well, I don't know that it was 25 million a day, but
I see.
Yeah, no, we're seeing a pretty huge dip. There were 25 million users at its peak, and now 100,000 a day are coming in to take care of their pets and play some games and see what's going on the Neopian Times and how the stock market is doing. I forgot to mention, there's a stock market. There's a stock market, and in the 2005 article in Wired, Doug Doring, he was still involved in the company after the sale to Viacom, he says, around the time of the Enron scandal, we bankrupted 3 of those companies just for the hell of it.
That doesn't feel like a normal stock market.
He says, the Neopians were saying, this is no fair. But hey, stuff happens in the world.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, now this all feels very weirdly, I mean, are there people gaming the Neopian stock market? Like people selling Neopian stocks short and...
Yeah. Genuinely, children learned how the stock market worked. It functioned like a stock market. I'm sure there are stockbrokers today who got their start on the Neopian stock market. There's journalists who got their start in the Neopian Times. There's coders that got their start on pet pages. I have to believe that there's stockbrokers who got their start on the Neopian stock market. It was a very formative website for a lot of people.
And it's another example of how millennials are also the generation that were taught things like, oh, you can be a journalist. That's a job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Only to reach early middle age and have oh, sorry, that's not a job anymore. It's barely a job.
Well, they should have known they weren't getting paid for writing in the Neopian Times, and that would be a sign of the rest of their careers.
Okay, so now Bad Dragon owns it.
NetDragon, yes.
NetDragon.
So they own Jumpstart still exists, but it exists now as a subsidiary of NetDragon, and it does feel like some management decisions are no longer within Jumpstart's hands, and certainly not within the hands of the Neopets staff in particular.
Are you saying that it's in the hands of the Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party?
Perhaps. Who am I to say?
At what point do they get bought by Purina Cat Chow? Because I know it's coming.
So NetDragon is a little bit the Purina of our story. They own Jumpstart. Jumpstart owns Neopets. Nobody's really paying attention to Neopets. So when Adobe Flash support ends in 2020, a full 9 years of warning since Adobe said we're going to kill it. They kill it in 2020, and these little cartoon tombstones with the Flash logo pop up all over the website. They had been very slowly trying to convert over the website to HTML5, but because it was so dense with content, with games, with items, pets, the world map, it all ran on Flash, and they'd been running at kind of a shoestring staff for so many years at this point. They didn't make the deadline.
Oh no.
So their site isn't dead. They had kept just enough going that there was still some game to play. You could still, you had your pet. You could feed them and groom them. There were, I think, 8 games that they made out of over 50, I want to say. There were a lot of games, and only 8 of them made it to HTML5 at that point. So in January of 2020, they had 3.4 million users per month.
Okay.
Something else significant happened in March of 2020, if you recall, that gave them
let me see.
gave them a 30 to 40% user bump because suddenly everybody found themselves at home looking for things to do. But this,
and I'm going to resurrect my zombie Neopets.
Mm-hmm. But the site was so broken that even despite an unprecedented global event keeping everyone indoors and online, they went from 3.4 million users in January to 1.5 million users in June. That's how broken the site was.
Because people were just wandering through virtual cemeteries.
Yeah, they're clicking on things and nothing worked.
Oh,
or
that's
very few
too
things
bad.
worked. It is. And, the diehards hung on, obviously, but both mobile games ended in 2020. They had released 2 and they killed both of them. It just was not looking good for Neopets. The following year, they try another site redesign. Everybody hates it. At this point, I would say the user base is more invested in what Neopets currently is and not particularly invested in adapting new technology.
Yeah, sure.
They want the site to work, but they don't want it to be different. They just want it to work. I feel the same way about, our government. I just want it to work. I didn't want it to be different.
Is that so crazy?
I can sympathize. And investing in a site redesign when most of your shit is still broken is kind of a bummer. So a lot of, there's fan-made plugins for the browser to undo the site redesign. But more hated than the site redesign in 2021 is the announcement of the Neopets Metaverse project.
Oh my God, I hate it so much.
You are not alone. So they want to enter the metaverse, and they want to do it with Neopets NFTs.
Oh, how could I not have predicted that NFTs played a role?
I'm telling you, Neopets has all the hits. It's everything the internet has gone through.
Oh, wow.
Now we're at NFTs. The user base does not want NFTs. They want the site to work. Why are you building NFTs when we can't even play the games? So
weren't a lot of the things in Neopets already kind of proto NFTs in the sense of?
Well, that's part of the controversy. So the NFT debacle is one in which I think the Neopian community really shines. There are pet, I keep saying it twice. There are pet pages. Sorry, there's a thing called a pet. Your Neopet can have a pet. And then there's a thing called pet pages, and it's really doing my head in. So there's pet pages that are now dedicated to protesting the NFT decision. Because you can put whatever you want on your pet page.
Yeah,
it's customizable HTML. If you want to put a screed against how like corrupt and nonsensical it is that the site would go in this direction, you're free to do so. They can't stop you. So huge protests happen. People are canceling premium. They're divesting. There's a I think 1-day user strike where people resolve to not log in for a whole day to prove that they're opposed to this.
Wow, they're storming the Bastille.
They are. There's, the typical sort of environmental concerns about NFTs that we heard sort of as a general objection to the concept writ large when it was introduced to the internet. But there's also some Neopian specific objections, including the fact that all of these images are already available all over the website for free.
Right.
Some of the images they use as demo NFTs are actually stolen content from fan sites and not even actually the intellectual property of Neopets.
Color me surprised.
I know. If you can believe NFT originators stealing.
How many of them are apes in sunglasses?
None of them. They're all Neopets.
Okay.
There is... Horny Hedgehogs is associated. It's another line of NFTs that was associated with the company. So it's a third-party company minting the NFTs. It's not NetDragon or Jumpstart. They've licensed basically with a third-party company to do it. And that third-party company also had some affiliation with Horny Hedgehogs, which people also point out you can't even say horny on the Neopian message boards. So why are you allowing yourselves to be affiliated with this? The whole thing just feels really corrupt. There's a whole thing with people using slurs on a Discord group for the site and mismanagement and bad communication. The people actually staffing the Neopets site seem to have been as surprised by the announcement of the NFT partnership as anyone. And it's just not going well. There's also the point that in 2018, Neopets had already tried doing NFTs via something called CryptoQuest, and less than about 20% of the released crypto digital trading cards were sold then. So there's also that point of why would this work better? Luckily, in 2023, they kill the project. They kill Neopets Metaverse, and they announce that Neopets is now owned by itself. There's no more Purina. It's the world of Neopets Incorporated. As of 2023, they are self-owned, self-governed, and self-operated. Dominic Law is the CEO. He was involved in NetDragon, and he was involved in the Neopets Metaverse effort. But the users of the site try to keep open hearts and not hold that too much against him because he was a Neopets user as a child. He talks about wanting to play Neopets with his children, and he seems to genuinely have the true spirit of the site in mind. 2024, the site celebrates its 25th anniversary. They announced John Legend is a spokesperson for Neopets, potentially due to his wife's influence as a former Neoboard moderator. They introduce in 2025.
When I think of kids that want to play with pets, I think John Legend.
Come into the awareness that it is mostly millennial women at this point.
Right. I see. Oh, and also, is it mostly, or are there a disproportionate number of women using Neopets than men?
At this point, yes. When it was a site for children in the early 2000s, there were a lot of boys using it. There's butch enough Neopets that you didn't feel like, a girl playing with dolls necessarily. You could retain your nascent masculinity while still playing Neopets. But as different games became more widely available, I think it just doesn't necessarily appeal to that demographic. There's it's women and it's queer people for the most part.
Yeah. Boys like square things, as we've established already.
Yeah, and a lot of the Neopets are quite round, so it doesn't really work. So yeah, they got John Legend because they figured out who their market is.
Oh, right. He's very sexy. Yes. So Neopets now is back being its own self-governed, self-owned place, not responsible to McDonald's or to Metaverse or anything. And it probably still has, even though it's down massively from its peak, it still probably has an enviable number of daily users, right?
It has, as of February of last year, 250,000 daily users, which is 3 times more than pre-2023. So yeah, that's 400,000 monthly daily users. They are licensing products. They have just introduced, last year, they introduced their first new pet species in 11 years, the varwolf.
Sure. Varwolf.
It was a big deal. The method of getting it was kind of complicated and controversial. There, still, I think, a little bit of friction between the user base and the people running the site in terms of care taken. There's still a little bit of a question of how much is being invested in the basic functionality of the site. They did, in 2023, they did figure out how to revive a lot of the Adobe Flash content by using Ruffle, which is a Flash emulator. So they have that embedded in the site. So it's revivified a lot of the dead games and pages and things. So quite a lot of the site has come back to life now that they've incorporated Ruffle.
Flash emulation. Who would have thought?
I know. And apparently it was possible to use the site if you, the user, had Ruffle installed. You could revive some of the Flash stuff, but now it's integrated into the website, so you don't have to have the plugin for yourself.
Oh, wow.
So things just work. Not everything. And because the conversion is still in process, you'll have this disconcerting experience of clicking around and all of a sudden, you're in your kind of like new web dynamic, like big round button thing, and then you'll click a page and be back in the world of web frames. And it's jarring. It feels like a time machine, and then you click away and you're back in the like more modern web again. So they're still very much working on conversion. There's some continuing complaints as to how well they're prioritizing what should work and introducing new stuff versus maintaining the old stuff. They're still doing a lot of licensing stuff. They licensed with somebody to do a Roblox experience to keep with the youth, I guess. I don't know. I'm going to be honest. I don't really know what Roblox is, and I'm not interested in finding out. No, I've aged out of that.
6, 7.
Exactly. It's not for me. They also, they're debuting a companion app so that you can maintain your pet on the go in this mobile app. It's only in Australia and New Zealand so far, I'm assuming, because it's a small enough market to beta test, kind of.
It also feels like this is very much a thing that Australians and New Zealanders would have been early adopters and still be doing it even after the rest of the world has moved on.
Yeah, they can, especially, I mean, no shade to New Zealand, but they do seem to be operating on a little bit of a delay relative to the rest of the world. It's a beautiful place full of beautiful people.
Yes.
Who just are functioning a little bit behind the rest of us.
It's still 1986 there, and God bless them all. Yeah.
I heard some interview with John Cleese, who's talking about when Monty Python first toured New Zealand in the 70s, and he had the sense that they were traveling backwards in time. And I've been fortunate enough to go to New Zealand, and I had that sense before hearing that interview, and it was just so validating to hear John Cleese say exactly the impression that I had of the country.
Yeah.
It's not just me, it's them.
I find that delightful.
But yeah, so Neopets is thriving-ish.
Yeah.
Still extant. I made an account specially for this episode to research to make sure I was up. I got a little bit of burst of nostalgia running through, and I made a flotsam, which looks like a unicorn with a horn sort of a horn sticking out of a growth sticking out of its head. Uh-huh. It's got a little squid scarf, and its name is Futureling.
Oh, that's wonderful. There's omnibus co-branding happening on Neopets. And have you gone out and tried to seek out your little starving friends from 20 years ago?
I have no idea where I would even begin to find them. I'm praying that at some point they just took the Neopets from users who'd been inactive long enough and there's an adoption agency. So I hope they put them up for adoption.
Oh.
What I'm planning on doing, because I've discovered that I am not a suitable neo-parent, when this episode airs in the public feed, I will be putting Futureling up for adoption so that any active Neopians can take better care of our flotsam friend. I log in every few days, and every time I do, he has this sad face because he's starving, and I feel so bad.
Well, I can't wait to hear from Futurelings who were Neopians and had let it lapse and now are, inspired by this episode, have gone back into Neopia, and I want to know the future of Futureling.
Yes.
And it seems very much like a thing that we can follow Futureling's adventures even from outside of the Neopian universe, just from getting reports from Neopians, right?
Hopefully.
I'd like to see Futureling be a fat little unicorn, overfed, in fact.
Yeah, I've never gotten him to that point, but I assume it's possible. He's been mostly eating free omelets.
Well, Kate, this has been a marvelous episode of the Omnibus. I really appreciate you giving me such an education in a thing that was happening all around me. And the word Neopet. I guess maybe I conflated it with nootropics. Which is some kind of vitamin that you take or some sort of extra speed that you take to be a better tech bro.
Vitamin supplements for tech bros.
Yeah, right. So I wasn't sure what all these words mean, but now I know what Neopets are, and I'm going to look for them in the wild.
Fantastic.
If I see an apple with a mustache, I'm going to be like, I get that reference.
Well, great. I'm happy to have been able to spread the word of Neopia and, maybe help grow their user base now that they are functional again.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'll be part of it per se, but maybe somebody else will find that it is their true calling.
And that concludes Neopets. Entry 831.EC0904. Certificate number 30063. In the Omnibus. Futurelings, this whole episode is about how social media can be basically co-opted by Scientologists and the Chinese government. And so we highly recommend that you have nothing to do with it. But if you are on social media, and if you are on Neopets, look for us at Omnibus Project and look for Futureling out there in the wild, galloping across her virtual fields of clover. You can see other Futurelings and hang out with them on Reddit, Discord, Facebook, and a multitude of other places that you know better than I on the Nootropics website, whatever that is. Just Google Futurelings wherever you are, or not Google. Use Bing to find wherever Futurelings congregate. You can email us directly at theomnibusproject@gmail.com, which we encourage you to do, and send physical mail to the Omnibus Project at 609 Southwest 150th Street, number 48084, in Burien, that's Burien, Burien, Washington, 98166. And as a last plea, it's not a plea, as a last strongly worded request, not strongly worded, as a gentle reminder, Omnibus Project is supported by listeners at patreon.com/omnibusproject. Well, Kate, you believe in Patreon, I know.
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
So patreon.com/omnibusproject is a great way for people to basically animate a starving Neopet in the form of me, and all of the operation behind the scenes here at Omnibus, Manager Grant, keeps the lights on. So go to patreon.com/Omnibus Project.
From our vantage point in your distant past, we have no idea how long our civilization survived. We hope and pray that the catastrophe we fear may never come. If the worst comes soon, this recording, like all our recordings, may have been our final word. But if Providence allows, we hope to be back with you soon for another entry in The Omnibus.